Hey, how you're doing? So today is about the 40 lessons that I learned from these 40 books. I'll just get them out. Quite a stack. And we're going to go through each one of them in very brief detail, okay? So, I've said this before, but you only need to find one lesson in every book to make it worth reading. Some books are absolutely packed with lessons. Some of these are absolutely packed with lessons. But as long as you find one lesson that you can take and implement into your life, that's what makes it worth reading, right? So let's get started. First one, Psycho-Cybernetics. Probably one of the best books on self-improvement. This one is all about positive self-belief, how your self-image and how you can use that as a visualization and a goal to aim at a target and just allow your intuition. And Maxwell Maltz uses the analogy of servo motors, like a guided missile course correcting towards your target. Brilliant book. Next one, Thinking Fast and Slow. So we have two ways of thinking. One which is fast, which is our sort of subconscious, rear brain, if you like, and another more conscious thought, like our slow brain, and how those two types of thinking can really impact us in terms of our decision making. Biggest lesson I got from this is understanding loss aversion and how we can train ourselves to be almost like have a trader's mindset, look for any asymmetrical upside to make a decision, and don't succumb to the fear of loss, which is a lot greater than the fear of gain. Next, Office Politics, Oliver James. This is a great book. I did this on another video. It's about office politics, how to thrive in a world of lying, backstabbing and dirty tricks. It's about narcissism, psychopathy and Machiavel's Machiavellianism. It's all about recognizing the signs of these people, which we call the dark triad. And lesson I got from this, well, I always want to become a better Machiavel, so learning how to spot the tips and tricks and improve my own skills in how to play them at their own game. Next, Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power. This is a belting book. My favourite law has got to be the best thing that I learned from this book, Law 33, which is, here we go. Discover each man's thumbscrew. Everyone has a weakness, a gap in the castle wall. That weakness is usually an insecurity or an uncomfortable emotion or need. It also can be a small secret pleasure. Either way, once found, it is a thumbscrew that you can turn to your advantage. Quite brutal, brilliant lesson. Next one, The 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss. This is probably one of the first books I read on self-improvement a long time ago, maybe about 18 years ago whenever I read this first. Biggest lesson I got from this, the low information diet. This means doing things like batching emails and not focusing on the small stuff. So yeah, great lesson. Next, Limitless, Jim Quick. This is the boy with the broken brain you might have seen advertised on other videos. Packed with lessons. Best one in here is learning how to speed read, which Order Out of Chaos, Scott Walker. So Scott is was my business coach for 3 years. This is all about advanced negotiation. Scott was a hostage for ransom, sort of kidnap negotiator, negotiating at the highest stakes. So we learned things like active listening and all sorts of tips there about like matching and mirroring and all sorts of communication techniques. Absolutely brilliant book. Atomic Habits, James Clear. This is a great book, sold loads of copies. Obviously it's many small actions, taking small measurable actions, daily steps each day. Pretty much put a lot of that into the journal and a lot of my videos. Habit creation and reinforcement. Tools of Titans, Tim Ferriss. Probably one of his best books. I love 4-Hour Workweek. This one's a bit more practical, lots of different tools and tips. I mean, Tim is an absolute master of a super learner. So he'll just sort of break things down into sort of routines and things and analyze them and find patterns on how world-class top performers are full of useful tips and mental models. Peak 40, Mark Bubbs. This is a very, very simple to understand how guys that get to the age of about 40 to 48 tends to be the most miserable part of a guy's life if left unchecked, because this is when they've got probably young kids, lots of debt, lots of career pressure, maybe they've put on some weight and they feel like crap and maybe things are not going great at home. This is usually the breaking point of many men. And this book is all about spotting the signs so you can avoid that. And it's quite a simple read. It's almost like an executive summary of all the deeper books on health and fitness that I read. So it's a great read. Next, Outlive, Peter Attia, a more modern take on things like biohacking and life extension. Best lesson in this is Peter Attia's approach to sleep and how important sleep is. Fantastic book. I would read it just for that, just for the sleep. The Mediterranean Diet Cookbook. This guy, one of the authors, Thomas DeLauer, who I follow. He's one of the big, Thomas DeLauer is a big influencer online. He is probably one of the leading voices in the keto diet. Thomas is who I learnt keto off by watching all his videos, and this book's great. So it's all aimed at low carb, low inflammation, promotes longevity. More of a keto diet, but it's fantastic, full of recipes, really simple principles. The first part's got a lot of explanation about various food groups. Fantastic, learning about keto. Next one, Superhuman, Dave Asprey. So Dave Asprey is a bit more wacky in the, I don't want to say wacky, but he's a bit more wacky in the biohacking world. Great. I found this book to be fantastic. You know, some people think it is a bit too out there and wild. There are a lot of wild stuff in here. But what I like is each section at the end of it, there's like a crib sheet. I mean, you can, at the end of every chapter, there's a crib sheet. You can just read that and get your tips. But the biggest lesson in here that I learned was the 4 big killers. So all of the 4 big killers, which are Alzheimer's, heart disease, diabetes, and cancer, are all somehow related to inflammation. So your key job, the biggest lesson in here, is about learning how to lower inflammation and how important that is for longevity. You know, if you're going to reduce the risk of that, fantastic book for that. The 4 big killers, lower your inflammation through whole foods and generally a lower carb diet. Anyway, next one, Chris Van Tolkien, ultra processed people. Why do we all eat stuff that isn't food, and why can't we stop? Look at that on the front. What is it? Shop bought bread, supermarket bought bread. It's really, really processed. The biggest lesson here is Chris reckons that the average Western diet, we're talking like someone that doesn't eat consciously, is laden with up to 80% processed foods. And they are the worst thing for you in terms of body inflammation, health issues and things like that. So learning about processed foods is fantastic. Next one, Tim Ferriss again, The 4-Hour Body. This is a great book. Biggest lesson here, well, there's a couple of lessons. One is about overtraining. I would say Tim's approach to, as you get bigger and stronger, you have to train less. That's a great lesson. But the other one is what he calls his slow carb diet. So he carb cycles and hacks carbs, but doesn't have too much. So he understands that too many carbs can spike insulin and mess with your insulin resistance and increase body inflammation. But Tim's approach to it is fantastic in here. My diet today is pretty similar to this. Again, Tim promotes whole foods, cooking. There's a lot of cooking advice in there. Next book, Mark Manson, Models. I've done a really, my best video is a review of this book, so you should go and watch that. I'll put a link down below. But Mark Manson's Models attract women through honesty. Mark calls it being vulnerable. Biggest lesson is vulnerability doesn't mean being needy and weak. It means sticking your neck out and going for what you want in life. It means being vulnerable enough to show your hand So if you like someone or want someone, you just go and tell them, you know what I mean? And other lesson I got from this, everything in this book you can translate into the business world as well. I've explained that in my, go and watch my video on that. Next book, Attached, Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. So this is about attachment styles. It's quite a revolutionary book. The best part, the best lesson about this is to do the test that's inside. Learn about attachment styles, but really, really do the test inside. And there's also a section to do a test on someone else, which means that once you get this down, you can quickly profile someone like that. I know it sounds really bad, but you can profile them very quickly and almost predict how they will behave in any given scenario. And you can also do it for yourself and predict how you behave in any given scenario. And then you might want to ask yourself, do I want to behave like that, or do I want to change? Anyway, there you go. Next one, Getting the Love That You Want. Harville Hendricks and Helen Hunt. Done a few book reviews on this. This is a brilliant book on relationships, and it also can benefit you in your personal, professional life. It's all about something called the imago match. Imago is Latin for image, and it means that you have a shadow side to yourself, which is the missing part of you. So it's a bit like the attachment style. So if you're avoidant, your shadow side is your, being more anxious. And if you're anxious, your shadow side is your being more avoidant. And you tend to attract the opposite. You date the opposite. So I did a video when I was out in Lake Tenno in Italy called Integrate Your Shadow or You'll End Up Dating It. So you do. But the idea of the imago therapy is both partners practice the missing part of them to bring themselves closer to the middle and become more secure. Brilliant book. Next, Mode 1, Alan Roger Curry. This is very similar to Mark Manson's models. In fact, this one I think was written first, and a lot of people think that Mark Manson copied this book for the mainstream because this is a bit more hardcore. It's a bit more brutal, and you could say it's a bit more red pill. Absolutely brilliant. There's 4 modes, Mode 1, Mode 2, Mode 3, Mode 4. And the idea being is that you want to be Mode 1 always, because that is where you're going to not get your time wasted and not get manipulated. And the idea being is that unless you are Mode 1 always, if you're Mode 2 is like your average guy that's sort of pretty good looking, fairly successful, but doesn't quite get off with every woman. Mode 3 is more like your nice guy. And then Mode 4 is like the bitter black pill type guy. And the idea being is unless you're Mode 1 always, you will either get your time wasted or be manipulated and end up getting to Mode 4, which is very dark and horrible. Next one, Nice Guys and Players, Ron Wills. This is quite a small book. Ron Wills is he's on YouTube, great guy. And he, very similar to, say, Mark Manson's models. Nice guys, obviously. Nice guys. Players are like the playboys. And he says you want to become what he calls it, the real man, a bit more integrated. Because the idea is, even the players, they might get lots of women, but they never get the woman that they want. They never quite get the right girl because they're not a fully integrated man. They're not that real man that is well balanced that woman wants. So, great book. Next one, Atomic Attraction, Chris Camwell. This is a very, very actionable book on improving your attraction, from how to dress, how to act, your body language, what to do, what to say, what not to say. So it's less of, there is a lot of theory in it, and it's all backed by like massive amounts of science, but as a sort of, it's almost like learning pickup lines. This book will teach you exactly how to prepare yourself to become attractive. So it's great for newbies who are just getting sort of good at sort of attraction and dating and that kind of thing. Just a shed ton of actionable advice. Next one, No More Mr. Nice Guy, Robert Glover. Great book. This is about getting what you want. So if you think about nice guy syndrome, this is where you're just a people pleaser, whether that's in your relationships, in business, with the neighbour, friends, all that kind of thing. It's all about getting your needs met in life. It's not so much of a dating book, it's a sort of overall getting your needs met. And it's just about, the idea is to start getting your needs met. You might have to go extreme in the opposite direction first to get out of the people-pleasing nice guy and practice being a bit of an asshole for a bit. Great book. Next one, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. This is a great book. It's a collection of it was written by, Eric Jorgensen. It's a collection of his tweets. He did some, Naval does a lot of tweet storms or Twitter storms, whatever you call it, where he's just constantly battering out these like absolute nuggets of wisdom, and the book is packed with, there's more lessons in this little book than most of these books. Packed with wisdom. Best one is learning to love to read. And what Naval says on learning to love to read, by the way, he says, first you have to learn for pleasure. So you'll learn like easy books. Once you learn to love to read, then you can read the difficult books that you should read. Next book, Gap in the Gain, Dan Sullivan. This one, the lesson is measuring backwards. So the idea being, you have where you currently are, where you was, and what the future holds. So there's 3 states, and the idea being is the future is on the horizon, right? And if you're always looking at what you haven't got and measuring what you don't have, you're in the gap. What you should be doing is measuring between where you are today and where you was yesterday or 6 months ago. Measuring backwards, you're measuring the gain. So measure backwards. Next one, The 4 Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz. So this is a collection of 4 agreements that you should have with yourself. The first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. Second agreement, don't take anything personally. Third agreement, don't make assumptions. Fourth agreement, always do your best. The biggest lesson on this is don't take anything personally. You know, people are on their own journey. Fantastic book. Next, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, Deepak Chopra. Fantastic book, right? The best lesson in this, because obviously there are 7 spiritual laws, so you've got the law, I'll just read them out to you, right? You've got the law of pure potentiality, the law of giving, the law of karma, cause and effect, the law of least effort, the law of an intention and desire, the law of detachment, and the law of dharma, or your purpose in life. Best lesson in this is obviously karma, cause and effect, but also the law of intention and desire, how you can set intention and karma to work together, you know, because you set an intention without being too attached to the outcome. So it's like a direction, like a vision. Next, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. This is another book that I read years ago. Brilliant book. And the best lesson about this is learning the difference between assets and liabilities, and to build your asset column, right, without building and not building your liability column. And a little great lesson in this is what Robert Kiyosaki says is, and I believe this, the house that you live in is not an asset, it's a liability. The house that you buy is an investment or whatever, a property to rent out and earn money off. That is an asset. Great lessons, assets and liabilities. Next book, Economics in One Lesson. This is Henry Hazlitt. So this is like if you want to learn about economics, right, when we're talking like macroeconomics here, because microeconomics, different subjects, we're talking, you know, macroeconomics is like how to run a business, finite accounting. Macroeconomics, how the economy works. This is a really, really great, simple book. Just to give you an overview of that. You know, we're not all going to become an economist. This is a great book just to sort of explain that and understand the difference in terms of how inflation works, what inflation is. You know, it's like generating more money basically, and how it's done. So very important. Next book, Think and Grow Rich. This again is I would say it's similar to psycho-cybernetics. It's very much about positive mindset and building that, almost like that visualization and thought process, and knowing that you're going to succeed. So yeah, I mean, This is a very, very old book, Napoleon Hill, you know. It says here now, 15 million copies sold worldwide. Fantastic book about positive mindset for success. Life Leverage, next book, Rob Moore. I love Rob Moore. He's one of the directors of Progressive. I'm on his email subscribe list. Fantastic stuff. Rob's like a property mogul, isn't he? He's one of these property empire, and he does a lot of teaching in that world. But this is all about how to leverage what you've got. Best lesson in this is what he talks about, integrating your life, your work into your life so that they become one. Great lesson, because what he talks about, work-life balance, you know, and who talks about work-life balance? Well, it tends to be people that are stuck in a job that they hate. If you love your job and you're passionate about it, and it's almost like I just treat my work like another project, like I do in my personal life. They're all just projects to me. And to integrate them together, you know, so you might say involve, you know, if you're going for a business trip, involve your family and things like that is a great lesson, because, you know, you don't have a work-life balance problem. So integrate your work and life together. Right, next one, Rob Dick's The Price of Money. This is a great book to understand the price of money. What he's talking about here is a bit like economics in one lesson. This is looking at the economy. A great lesson in here is about how the relationship between interest rates and inflation, right? And how the governments of the world, all the government debt, so the governments need inflation to be higher than the base rate of interest, just so that they can refinance the national debts. So if you think about national debt, government bonds, if inflation is less than the interest rate, the government would not be able to print enough money to pay off the debt and all that interest that's due on those bonds, right? So they need the inflation to be higher than interest rates, base rate, because the government borrow at base rate. What does that mean? Don't hold money, ever. Either invest it or do what the government does and borrow more. Next book, Low Cost High Life, right? This is Mark Homer. This is Rob Moore's business partner. Fantastic book. Best lesson in this one. So there's many lessons in this, and he's talking about preserving money, right? And the best lesson, cash preservation. Something I've not always been that good at, but I've really been implementing about cash preservation, right? So the idea is that you spend money on life's luxuries from money you earn, not from borrowed funds. Sounds pretty obvious. Great lesson in here where it's explained. Next book, The Body Keeps the Score, right? Bessel van der Kolk. Great lessons in this is about alternative means of therapy. Traditional therapy might be like talking therapy, CBT, right? They don't always work for everyone. They're more of, I think they work more for females or women because they like to talk through their issues. Guys tend to be, we're men of action, right? We solve our issues through action. So in here, it comes up with lots of different. So Bessel van der Kolk has been experimenting with lots of different alternative therapies, even things like theatre, right? And that sort of action helps people get over things. EMDR is another one, you know, the eye movement thing. That's a great one. Also things like hypnotism. And another thing that Bessel van der Kolk says is that, you know, your trauma gets baked into your sort of physiology. It's like stress reactions to your physical body. So the best way out of it is through alternative therapy, not talking therapy. Next book, bit of a complicated one. Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving, Pete Walker. The best lesson in here is all the recommended reading and all the techniques in the back. So there's a lesson here about overthinking and perfectionism. and how to get over that. So there's a section in here about the things that you need to mature your kids as well. So there's some great lessons in terms of, it's a practical book packed with lessons in terms of dealing with complex PTSD. So we think of PTSD as, say, post-traumatic stress disorder, of like, war, people that have been to war and seen some horrible things, or maybe you've been in like a massive natural disaster or something like that. It's not always the case. Sometimes you can get what's called complex PTSD just from repeated bad experiences in your younger years. Next book, Vagabonding. Fantastic book about travel. This, before Tim Ferriss wrote 4 Hour Work Week, he was having trouble with his business, working every hour, and he went on a sabbatical, didn't he? Just his head went. He took 2 books with him. This was one of them. So the lessons in here about, like, it's so uplifting in terms of, like, when you go traveling, you just take the smallest bag with you with the, like, the basic essentials. Don't take absolutely everything. So the lesson, when I go traveling now, which is quite frequently, I take the smallest bag with me and get away with it, you know what I mean? So, like, reducing your luggage down. But it is a really good fun book. If you're going to go, take that away. You'll read it on a trip and enjoy it. Next book, The Concise Guide of Self-Sufficiency, John Seymour. This is an absolute fabulous book that's full of practical lessons on how to create like a small holding and live off the land. But even John Seymour, who's an expert, says it isn't possible to live completely off grid. There has to be some interaction with your society, but there's some, John's philosophy is to reduce your dependence on society as possible. And this sort of falls in line with my philosophy on living life on your terms. The least amount of interaction that you have with, say, the government, the least need you have from the state, the least interactions or dependencies you need, like, say, in terms of your work. So this is why starting a business is better than having a job, because you've got control. It's all about generating more personal sovereignty. There's a really good set of diagrams in here, and there's a great section. So you've got these like 4 diagrams. That's winter, how you should set up your allotment in winter, what spring looks like. Look at this. It's full of, what's that? Early summer. There you go. What you should be doing. Late summer. Fantastic. Autumn. And then in the back there's lots of like practical things like how to tie rope knots and stuff. So it's absolutely packed. I love this book. The Denial of Death, Ernest Becker. This book, I've changed my opinion on it. I do like it now. Even though on my reading list I said I didn't really enjoy it. I think it was just the writing style. But anyway, it's a great book. And Ernest Becker makes the case that everything that has ever existed in, like, this, you might have heard of a theory that everything that ever existed, every skyscraper that was ever built, every railway that was ever created, was all for the ego in the quest to impress the opposite sex. Because a lot of what we do really is just to look good, earn loads of money, and beat the other person from, rise up the ranks in terms of ego and get the best girl and thing, or if you're a girl, get the best guy. Ernest Becker makes a case that it's actually to avoid mortality. We're trying to create almost like a legend of ourselves, that we will be remembered because we're really fearing death. So everything that was ever created is in the denial of death, which, what is a legend? I like Mike Tyson's. He's like, what legend? When I'm dead, I'm dead. Great lesson. Next book. How to Sell Anything to Anybody. Joe Girard, regarded as the world's greatest salesman, according to the Guinness Book of World Records in terms of statistics. A great lesson in here that, well, there's a couple. I would say the law of 250. So Joe Girard's law of 250 means every person that you meet knows approximately 250 people. So if you give them a bad experience with you, if they're a customer, they're likely to influence 250 people. That could be a lot of sales lost in the future. However, if you give them a good experience, good customer service, then they're likely to generate more sales through the 250 people that they're going to say good things, right? And the difficulty is most people will give quick to give a negative review a lot quicker than they are to talk positively about you. So the lesson is absolutely customer service first. Another quick lesson in this book, how he uses smells to sell things. So he was a car salesman, and he knew that all he had to do was get someone sat in a new car, and that new car smell would do the trick. The smells sell things. Next book, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. My favourite habit in here is start with the end in mind. I think it's habit 2, isn't it? Yeah, habit 2. Oh, begin with the end in mind. That is the best lesson and best habit in that book. Next and last book, Traction, Gino Wickman. This is the entrepreneurial operating system. I've done a lot of content about this recently because I've recently read it. And I am going through it and taking all the little bits and tools from the EOS toolkit and implementing in both my businesses, part of them. The best one to date that I found in here is the EOS scorecard. So on a typical business, so if I think about my tech business, it's like ISO 9001 accredited, and we do management accounts, monthly accounts, that kind of thing. And most businesses do a P&L, profit and loss, right? What Gino Wickman said, the problem with the profit and loss is after the event. And by that time, if there's a problem, it's already too late. Whereas implementing what's called an EOS scorecard, where you're collecting key metrics for things like number of visitors, number of appointments booked, number of purchases, all these, the granular stuff. You can say how many clicks, what's the cost per click, what's the advertising cost of sale, all these kind of things that you can measure weekly will tend to predict the P&L ahead of the P&L, before the P&L. So you can predict months in advance using that EOS scorecard. So that is a fabulous lesson in this book. Right, that's all the 40 books. So all of these books are on my website. So if you go to andyholt.co.uk, go to resources, reading list, they're all on there. Just remember that every book here now, you only need to find one lesson from every book. And what you must do with that one lesson, don't be an armchair theologian, right? Make sure you're a practitioner. What's the difference between a theologian and a practitioner? A practitioner takes what the lessons you learn in books and implements them in the daily life. So you need to find that one lesson from every book, or sometimes you'll find multiple lessons, and you must implement it in your daily life. All right? Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and see you all next time.